I'm Damian Barrett. Welcome to Access All Areas. Some remarkable football played across the weekend, and while some teams continue to struggle, the Dogs yesterday, Matthew Lloyd and Jimmy Bartel, hit back in fine fashion.
They did, and welcome Jimmy to you as well. And they did hit back in fine fashion. We'll talk about the losers first, though, Damo. I've never heard so much venom come out of Essendon supporters in recent years. They are angry, they are frustrated, they have no faith in what the team is doing in regards to being that team they all hoped they would be at the start of the year, and that's a top four side, a team that could win a final, and it's because of the fundamental errors and the inability from the coach's box and also the on-ground leaders to make a change when games aren't going
That's
well.
a strong word to use, venom.
They are angry. I think they're really angry. It was just as bad a loss, and John Worsfold said it after the game. It's as worse than when they had no players back in 2016.
Can you see it? Can you see why they're venomous?
I can see it. You don't have faith. I think it's a little bit like Melbourne, but Melbourne at least have found the ability in the last 2 weeks to get the win. Essendon to travel last week, and then this week against the bottom side. Did they expect it would happen?
No,
maybe they did.
No, it was disappointing, but I'm going to give some credit to the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
They had that venom and intent around the contest. Their tackling pressure in the first 5 to 10 minutes where you can set the tone of a game was first class, and back to what we've sort of come accustomed to with the Doggies when they're playing good footy. They were just relentless around the ball. They put Essendon under a huge amount of pressure, and it was the Doggies that we've come to expect, Lloydie.
Oh, they were sensational, Jim, and it's just brilliant. When you're under siege as a club and you can respond in this manner, they would be ecstatic. And we saw the way they were opened up against the West Coast Eagles. If you've got the effort around the ball like this, you're not going to be opened up, and Danaher and Hooker had no effect on the game.
Well, speaking of Danaher, did it force the panic, decision at the end when that ball went long into the goal square?
Well, he didn't have a great day, and this from Tory Dixon, this is inspirational. You look at the scoreboard, the Bombers were starting to come, and he actually changed the game, and that's what they haven't had in recent weeks, the hunger to do efforts like that.
Yeah, they were really impressive right from the very first bounce. They did have a pretty tough week, though, the Bulldogs.
They did, Dano.
After the 2 losses to the year and the 3 at the back end of 2017.
And the external pressure is extreme, and you spoke during the week about how it filtered down to the players. Do you still stand by that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I reported on Thursday night, and we'll not back away from, there was a section of the crew and of the playing group that wasn't as embracing of everything about the club as they were. And the story was a comparison to where they were in 2016 with 2018. And this story doesn't change on the back of one win, as it wouldn't have changed on the back of a loss had they lost to Essendon yesterday. So, yeah, absolutely.
So how do they play like that, though, if they're a fractured playing group?
I never used the word fractured. I said there were parts of the club that were not embracing of each other. Others have morphed into something else. But the story was presented accurately, Lordo, as it always is. Okay. Jimmy, Bombers.
Yeah, the turnovers, and I mentioned the Joe Danaher one, but look, they tried to bite off a lot. I know you can be attacking and aggressive in the game and try and set the tone, and especially at Etihad where it is always perfect conditions there, but they just went for a bit too much, missed some targets, which then they went a little bit gun-shy, Lloydie, as the game went on.
I talk about inability to change and the amount of errors and mistakes. Some will say Stringer could he have given that handball. I think it's okay, but he tried hard. He wasn't their worst, Jake Stringer, yesterday, but just the turnovers. And here's probably the moment. Joe Danaher didn't have the best day yesterday, but still takes the grab. They were coming hard. Would have got them within 10 points with 5 minutes to go. He does that. They just didn't think their way through the game whatsoever. And then down the other end, Toby McLean. He wanted the moment. Joe Danaher didn't want that moment. Green shouldn't have called for it. And Toby McLean finishes them off. But, Jimmy, I want to ask you also, how does a side take 150 marks yesterday? That's what Worsfold's got to answer.
Yeah, that's defensive intent and intensity, and that comes back to the leaders. When you notice at quarter time and the opposition's had more than 40 marks, all uncontested against you, you have to just grab the group and say, look, you think you might be close to your man, but you've got to get it a lot closer, because the Bulldogs, time and time again, were able to just find their way out of defence, get it up into their half, short mark, short kick. They were under no pressure moving the ball around the ground, the Doggies.
Jimmy, we saw what Adelaide did with success against Richmond in round 2, the way they played Rance. Hawthorn, it seemed anyway yesterday, to go into this game against the Tigers with a similar mindset to bomb it long and to expose Rance, but they just weren't structured up the way the Crows were the previous week.
Yeah, I think the Hawks wanted to go to school on what happened to the Tigers last week, and with Josh Jenkins playing Rance really deep, but what the Crows did really well was create that space in between. There was just too many numbers deep for the Hawks, and Richmond are a very well-structured defensive side. I know we talk about the small forwards and they apply a lot of pressure, but what is getting undersold is that back six group for the Tigers. They're a well-drilled machine. Rance obviously gets all the attention, but Vlosten, Grimes, Asprey, another one, are just superb down there.
I think, Damo, this kick, it's from the centre of the ground.
Yep.
And he's able to mark it around 50 or 60. You've got to run, carry the ball, try and get it 20 metres out from goal. Hawthorn don't have the leg speed to trouble Richmond like Adelaide did the week before.
Strange game in Perth, Eagles and Cats. Eagles got the win. Cats went down when 3 key players, Ablett, Cockatoo and also Guthrie, went down late. But they're starting to set this season up quite nicely, the Eagles.
They are, and I think they had to win this game. Looking at what Geelong had, 3 players down, that was going to be a horrible loss for Eagles. They had a great first half. The big question for Geelong is they are only playing patchy football. They're playing a half of football. Their champs are getting them back in it. But I think they were brave late, Geelong. But the Eagles should have won this with 3 men down for Geelong.
Yeah, and they've got all their inexperience. In the back 6. They're all still trying to learn the game down there. And I guess as we see Nick Nat, brilliant ruck work. They're trying to play blitz in the ruck there, trying to get a bit more run. But just the back 6, they're desperate for Harry Taylor and Lachie Henderson to get back and help out.
Jimmy, about 55 to 59% game time is what Nick Nat knew he's averaging, but it's as good as 100% for most other players.
Yeah, he has maximum impact when he's on the field, and that probably played into Geelong's decision just to play blitz halves of the ruck, probably hoping that, 50 to 60% of game time, maybe we can get some run out of blitz halves, but big Nick Nat, he doesn't need a huge amount of possessions. He's a bit of that Rioli, isn't he, Lloydie? What he does really well.
Geelong have played 3 different ruckmen in 3 weeks. Got to sort that out.
And they could be 0-3 and they could be 3-0.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about him yet?
Just as I said, great top end, weak bottom end, just playing patchy footy.
Let's get back to Friday night. Carlton, Collingwood. Brendan Bolton, post-match. Have a listen. I want to get your views after this.
Quite simply, we've done what we said we're going to do and what our supporters wanted 2 years ago. We had to go to the draft. We've done that. And we've got some young talent in. It's talented. It's a little inexperienced, as we've said. We'll hold them to account. We'll never accept defeat. And in time, once they build together and they have enough experience, I think this will kick off. That's been the story. It's been totally transparent. We're not deviating from that. We just know that if held to high accountant standards and time together, they're going to make us smile.
Make us smile over time. Have Blues supporters had enough of hearing those words, Lordo, and not seeing enough on the field to think that the words are justified?
You just want to see the upward trend, and we haven't seen that. So they would be concerned. I think that they'd expect better than this. When you let go Bryce Gibbs, you know you're letting go some experience, and Doherty goes down, but you want to see some more shoots than just Cripps and also Curnow. I worry for Curnow. I think he's having double, triple teamed. He's taking on the world down in the forward line. Cripps, I saw him as frustrated as I've ever seen him on the weekend. So they need some help. And you look at their top-end talent. They've got as much top-end talent as any team in the competition. You look at their first-round draftees on the list, and that includes players that have come from other clubs since 2010 who were first-rounders. And they expect more than that. I spoke about Cripps and Curnow, but you want to see more from Wiedering. You want to see Mackay come and play.
So there's massive question marks over this club being guaranteed to rise up the ladder.
Oh, spot on, yeah. There's no given in this.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. There's no guarantee in footy just because you go to the bottom and you get a heap of young picks that then it's your turn. Yeah. There's no such thing as your turn in footy. Oh, it's our turn to win the premiership. But the thing for me is they haven't found the balance yet between attacking and defending. We saw the first 2 years under Brendan Bolton a really good defensive plan, and they'd often have 6, 7, 8 defenders back there. And Liam Jones is one who's struggling a bit at the moment with his spacing. He's been asked to defend one-on-one, but he's still defending like there's an extra defender back there.
Right,
and a
so
lot
he's
of
being exposed here.
Yeah, so a lot of these clips you see so far in the back position, where normally up in front of him there'd be a number of Carlton players. And I'll go back to round 1, they had 19 marks inside 50 against and 71 inside 50s. Against Collingwood, they just look, all these, just lower the vision, pick Carlton defence apart. So they've got to find the balance. Now, it doesn't mean they go back to completely defending, but when they win the ball, they can go a bit quicker. That's what I'd like to see a bit more. They've gone so far the other way now.
Right, it's a good point. I watch worry their bottom-end talent, Damo's.
Yep.
Looks like it's the worst in the comp from what I've seen over the first 3 rounds.
OK. John Longmire kept Buddy Franklin really deep toward goal in the round 1 game against West Coast. Kicked 8. He used him in a very different way against GWS with equal telling effect.
It was great coaching, I thought. He had to do it. We were critical last week. I think the ball went to Buddy 40% across the first 2 games, which is far. That's unhealthy. And I feel for guys like Sinclair and Reid. They're good players, but when Buddy's there, they just don't feel they're worthy in a sense, and the ball doesn't go to them. So he had 9 inside 50s. It was smart.
And all these highlights are showing actually how Buddy's improved over the last few years. His field kicking is absolutely off the charts. Look at this beauty.
It changed the game. That's what champions do.
He's the only bloke who could do that.
Look at the scoreboard, 10 points. They were coming and he changed the game.
Reid could be out with a quad for some time. Sinclair's obviously doing a good job. We touched on the Saints last week and we're all pretty critical of them in their own way. Nothing seemed to improve across the weekend. They are sloppy with their ball use. There is minimal reasons, I think, Lordo and Jimmy, for Saints supporters to be hopeful that this season is going to be turned around.
Yeah, well, a lot of expectations were high, obviously, within St Kilda, and I think the general footy public expected more. But they fielded the second youngest team on the weekend, and they were playing a very good side who played in the grand final and been a very good side for a number of years. But what frustrates probably St Kilda supporters are these sort of clips that we're seeing is poor disposals and poor decision making. Now, look, they were better in the contest. They actually came to play in the contest, but they need to lift their tackling pressure and just be smarter with the ball use, as the big fella lets his St Kilda team know.
Yeah, you need to put scoreboard pressure on Damo, and their kicking for goal is as bad as any team in the comp. You know, they're not the most skillful side, so you've got to hit the scoreboard. The Dogs have struggled, but they got reward for effort, and this was three-quarter time. This is probably what St Kilda fans are wanting from Alan Ritson, just to really go at his players, but you can only do that so much, Jim. You know, you can't just keep hammering these players over the head.
No, you're right, Lloydie, but the Crows are super impressive. They were a well-disciplined, well-drilled side that when St Kilda did come at them, they just held the fort. They didn't give up much of a score, which is super impressive with two of the Crouch brothers out. Rory Sloane still looks to be carrying an injury. But they've just got guys who just keep popping up and playing really good football. Bryce Gibbs, what an inclusion.
Yeah. Two of the coaching heavyweights went head-to-head and I loved it. Friday afternoon, Alistair Clarkson went big on his views of the slide tackle, the sling tackle, or the high tackle being made a concussion issue. Chris Scott, the next day of Geelong, having absolutely none of it.
He's going to keep playing like a bull in that sort of manner whilst he can continue to get those sorts of free kicks. But he's had 10 concussions in his career or thereabouts. The concern isn't for him right now. The concern is for him and the game in 10, 15, 20 years' time.
I think one needs to be really careful not to conflate shrugging a tackle with concussion, especially if you're using alternative facts to support your argument. The idea that Giles had 10 concussions is just wrong. The number's 3. And I think even this morning we've had people repeat that error. So I think an error is probably the nicest way of putting it. They're just alternative facts. I can understand that Alistair was frustrated with James Sicily getting suspended, but I think any reasonable person would say that Joel was more likely to suffer a concussion from a knee in the head than shrugging a tackle around the shoulder.
All right, I've assessed this a few times over the weekend, and I'm giving Chris Scott a clear-cut win here.
Did you think Clarkson got it horribly wrong?
Look, initially I liked the conversation, but I can now see it through Chris Scott's lens that this was about Sicily and Selwood. It wasn't about Clarko caring for players getting concussed in high tackles. I saw it that way, did you?
Yeah, I just think that speak about the issue and the concerns for players, but don't bring specifics into it. Concussions and also an individual player.
Yep. Your view?
Yeah, look, Joel's always going to fight through the tackle, and I'm glad he acknowledged that, and he's going to keep playing that contested style of footy, and he even brought up his own players. So it was a good conversation to have, but that's where it should stop.
Yeah, I think it has ended now. The Demons, like what they're doing. North Melbourne on the weekend broke an 18-game or 17-game losing sequence again against them, which stretched back to 2006, but setting up quite nicely.
No, I'm not sold yet.
You're not?
I'm not sold now. They've beaten who they should beat. You know, they've beaten North Melbourne and Brisbane the last 2 weeks, and they've had the other teams
should have beaten Geelong in round 1.
They should have, but they gave up the first 4 goals against North. Shouldn't have. They're asleep, and then their talent gets them back. They play Hawthorn this week. If they're fair income, they should win that one as well.
Yeah, they've got to switch their mentality into trying to win games, not just holding on, not to lose them. That's a different mentality, Lloydie, isn't it? You know, when you played in your great Essendon sides, you seized the opportunity, you went after the game. As you said, against the Hawks and other sort of top 6 sides, I wanted to see them take the game right on.
Yep, and the mentality of the next guy we're about to show you, Nat Fyfe, is back to that all-out win aggression, guys. He's dominating so far to this point of 2017 for this club, as he has done before.
He looks big, doesn't he, Lloyd? He's a brute. He's built like a centre-half forward, but he's winning all the contested ball, and that is Brownlow Nat Fyfe that we're seeing there. He's taking the tackler on a lot more. He had his injury problems, and he probably didn't have that power in his legs to be able to do it, but he's back to his scintillating best.
Yeah, I think he's, as you said, he's fit. He's finally winning a couple of games of footy, so that'll obviously help him as well in terms of his enthusiasm for the game. But yeah, they've got the Giants this week, which will be a step up on Essendon and obviously Gold Coast over the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Lordy, you're a studier of banners, and you wanted to have a look at these two contrasting presentations from initially here the Collingwood team on Friday night against
I'm
Carlton.
not sure how many in the cheer squad, but how do 200 people or 50 people miss that?
They fixed it up. They did fix it up.
They didn't.
They did fix it up. Have a look at this. This is actually quite clever, except it didn't play out the way the Saints wanted them to do.
Looked good, but that was the highlight of the Saints night, I would have thought.
Collingwood's was a joke, wasn't it?
Well, they fix it up.
Yeah.
How does it get to the
I don't know.
ground?
I don't know. And spelling's a big bugbear of mine too. Hey, boys, thank you, and thank you for joining us on Access All Areas. Have a good week. Goodbye.